Now let's get into how we draw this thing, okay? And what we're really trying to do is find that profit maximization. So monopolists do have power over pricing. So what we're trying to say here is that with perfect competition, we had the market graph, and then the market was saying how much you can charge at the firm. But in this case, the demand for the firm is the only firm, so that is the market. So in this case, the market demand, right, is for that monopoly firm. So, they are a price maker. So they can actually make the price here. Um, so then comes into play, right? If we're trying to do profit maximization, why don't we just keep raising the price? If we have control over it, right? We're the only ones that can do it. Let's just keep raising price. But as we know, with the law of demand, at higher prices, lower quantity demanded. So even though they have the only one, we are going to be limiting the quantity at higher prices. That's just the way it goes. That's how consumers operate. So if they do raise it too high, then you're not going to have any customers. That's just how it goes. So the main thing here is that they are a price maker. Perfect competition was a price taker, but now the monopoly is a price maker. So they will actually set the price to where they can make the most profits. It's going to be pretty interesting, okay? Because with perfect competition, right, we had that perfectly elastic demand curve. So it was horizontal, okay? And you could only charge this price. But with a monopoly, we're back to that downward sloping demand curve because they are the market, all right? So what does that mean? That means for a monopoly, they're more inelastic, which means that because there's no substitutes, less substitutes, more inelastic. So that's what a monopoly is. It's going to be more inelastic. So for our profit maximization, we still have the production cost. So what I mean by that is we still have marginal cost. We have the average variable cost, average total cost, right? We still have those things. We still have the law of diminishing marginal productivity. So we still have those. Basically, the idea here is that even though they are a monopoly, if they were to increase output, their cost, like the total cost, will be increasing. In perfect competition, though, marginal revenue was the same as price, but that's going to be different for a um, monopoly. Okay, with perfect competition, total revenue was going to be increasing throughout. Right, you just did price times quantity, and it's just increasing. But that was because your firm's demand was at that price, and you can sell as much as you want at the price. But with a monopoly curve, right, it's downward sloping to where eventually we could have as much quantity as we want right there or zero quantity. So we have to be careful here. So that's going to change our revenue. In a monopoly, they can charge whatever price they want, so therefore this will change their total revenue. Now, profit maximization, like I told you, you're going to get tired of me hearing, you're going to get tired of me saying it, but it is marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Always. Profit max, MR equals MC every time. So this still comes into play, right? If your marginal revenue is greater than your marginal cost, this means if you were to increase production, you are making more money than it cost you. So keep increasing output. If your marginal cost is more than your marginal revenue, this means is it costs you more to make it, so you need to back off. You need to make less output. Okay, so therefore the most profit you could have is MR equals MC. Okay, so in the real world, a monopolist often does not have enough information to analyze its total revenues or total cost curves. However, a monopolist often has fairly reliable information about changing output by small or moderate amounts will affecting its marginal revenue, marginal cost. That's a complicated way of saying we don't know the demand for our product or our firm, but we could figure out our marginal revenue and our marginal cost. So we could do that in the real world. right? We could look at, okay, well, when we made this many products, the marginal revenue was this, and the marginal cost was this. Are we maximizing our profits? You could do that, but we don't know the demand. That's the hard part about this. So when it comes to drawing this thing, we're still going to do the Nike swoosh on the marginal cost. That's still a thing. But now we're going to have a downward sloping marginal revenue curve. All right. So remember, I told you price changes, so total revenue is also changing. So the marginal revenue is going to be downward sloping. It's downward sloping because of the elasticity, right? Because you're more sensitive at higher prices, this is going to change the total revenue. And again, maximum profit will happen at MR equals MC. Maximum profit quantity, and then we'll get into price in a second. All right. So the main thing I wanted to show you here was that your marginal revenue is a downward sloping line. And your marginal cost is still the Nike swoosh. And you still do MR equals MC there. Okay? That's the main thing I wanted to show you. But let's get into why marginal revenue is downward sloping. And it's because of the elasticity. Lowering prices in the elastic portion of demand raises total revenue. We know this already. Because look, if I had the demand curve here, remember it's elastic here and inelastic here. And if I were to draw the total revenue, it would look like this. So if we're on the elastic side, which is on this side, and we're to lower price, that means quantity is going up. So I'm increasing quantity, and this will raise total revenue. Remember, when you find out what happened to quantity, you can figure out what happened to total revenue. So quantity is coming in, and then it's going up. Okay? So total revenue is increasing on the elastic portion. So that is why marginal revenue is positive on the elastic portion of demand. Okay, because your revenue is increasing as you are lowering your price. Now, if you lower your prices on the inelastic portion, okay, so now we still are increasing quantity, but now you're on the inelastic portion. So you're over here. So now, if you were to lower quantity, you're on your skateboard, you have to go down. So total revenue is going to be decreasing on the inelastic portion. If your total revenue is decreasing, that means your marginal revenue is negative. Okay? And then obviously total revenue is maximized where you are unit elastic. So if the monopoly wanted to maximize revenue, it happens where MR equals 0. Total revenue maximized, MR equals 0. So the same thing with the total revenue going like this. Similar idea with the margin revenue. So we have the demand curve. We have the 3 different areas. We have elastic, and we have inelastic. And then the demand curve, and then the marginal revenue curve is going to look like this. It's going to be positive, 0, negative. Okay, it's going to be 0 at this point right here. So that's the marginal revenue. And we can put these on the same graph here. We can actually do this. We can actually do there, demand. Okay. So that's what we're going to shoot for. So when we are doing demand and total revenue, all right, basically what's happening here is we have the demand curve, so price and quantity. Then we have the total revenue curve here. So at this point, unit elastic, marginal revenue is positive on this side because you're going uphill. the marginal revenue is negative on this side because you're going downhill. So that means you're positive here, negative here. So we're going to go like that. Straight line all the way down. So boom, you start there like that. Marginal revenue. If that's a little too complicated for you, basically what's happening here is we have the demand curve, and then we're going to shift the marginal revenue curve in. That's what we're doing. So as you can see here, the steps to get to the top of the total revenue are decreasing. So that means you're getting closer to zero. All right. So that's what we're doing here. Right there, this is the start of our monopoly curve, monopoly graph. Okay. So let's go ahead and draw this thing. Okay. We need a demand curve. We need a marginal revenue curve. Then we need a marginal cost curve. And then we need an ATC. ATC rules still apply. We still will have the lowest point intersecting the marginal cost. That still happens. Okay. So all of these still apply here. Total revenue, total cost, all that still applies. But this is a monopoly graph right here. We have the demand curve, marginal revenue, marginal cost, and the ATC. This is exactly what it's going to look like. Okay? If you're wondering where's the supply curve, remember that your supply is going to be everywhere above the AVC. Like that's where you are supplying. So that still applies. Basically, it's the marginal cost. Your marginal cost is your firm's supply curve. Okay? So where do they operate? That's the next thing about this, right? We have to figure out the steps to profit max. So we want to make sure we have a demand curve, marginal cost, and a marginal revenue. That's the way we want to start off. Then we're going to find out where MR equals MC. Okay? We're going to figure that out by going here. We're going to do MR equals MC happens right there. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is go straight down, and this will be the quantity. So you can go here and go straight down. This is your profit max quantity. MR equals MC, straight down, you find your quantity. Now, you're going to go straight up to the demand curve. Okay, just go straight up, and that will be your price. It's very important that you go to the demand curve. You got to go straight up to the demand curve. Very important. This, so straight up and over, this is your price. So earlier, when we were looking at perfect competition, right, it was like, okay, we have price right there. You have to go to the demand curve and go over. You do not do that. That's not your price. Your price is at the demand curve. Now, the next thing is now we're going to find the ATC. So now we're going to go straight up from quantity up to the ATC, and that happens right here. So this will be the ATC. Okay. And then we can draw the profit loss area. So how this works is remember, profit is total revenue minus total cost. So total revenue, okay, that's price times quantity. That is price times quantity. So this area right here in green, that's your total revenue. This entire area right here in green, because price times quantity, is your total revenue. And your total cost is the ATC times the quantity. So this area right here is your total cost. So now, as you can see here, are you making a profit or a loss? This area right here in yellow, which you cannot see, this area in purple, is your profit area. Okay? Now, another way we can know we have profits is because which one's greater, price or quantity? Price. Price is more than price is more than ATC, so we have profits. Okay? So this area right here is my profits. Now, again, the steps are we have a demand, marginal revenue, marginal cost. We find where MR equals MC, strike down to quantity, go up to the demand curve for price. We find the ATC. It doesn't matter where you draw it, right? You could draw it way up here if you wanted to. You're going to go all the way to the ATC curve. Okay. And then we can draw the profit or loss area. Okay. In this case, because price is less than ATC, this area right here is my losses. Okay. So that's the steps to profit max. Okay. Again, here we go. We have a demand curve, we have a marginal revenue curve, and a marginal cost. Find out where those are equal. Go down to quantity, go up to price, go to the ATC, and then that area is your profits. And the reason it's profits is because price is greater than ATC. Now, back when we talked about perfect competition, we know that perfect competition is efficient. Efficient meaning that they are productive and allocative efficient. Productive efficiency was where we are operating at the minimum ATC. Remember with perfect competition, it looked like this. Boom, profit max quantity here, Q star. That's also at the minimum ATC. Is Monopoly productive efficient? Let's find out. Okay, let's go with a demand curve. Let's go with a marginal revenue curve. Let's go with a marginal cost. Now the ATC, it honestly does not matter where you draw this thing, because it's just not going to work out. So let me see. If we drew it here, right? So now it's here. That's the minimum. Okay. We're going to go MR equals MC. We'll find the quantity. We'll find the price. We'll find the ATC, which is down here. So that big area is our profits. Now the minimum ATC happens right here. So this is Q productive efficient. As you can see here, a monopoly will not be productive efficient. They won't, okay, because they are not at the minimum ATC. They can actually make more profits here than at the lowest ATC. If I were to draw a different way, same story. Okay, if I were to draw the ATC, let's say over here at a loss, same deal. I am not at my productive efficient. Okay, so what does that mean? That means monopolies are not productive efficient. What about allocative efficient? Okay, so allocative efficiency was where price equals MC. Is my price equal to MC? No. Because here, where my marginal revenue equals my marginal cost, this is my marginal cost. If you're thinking, well, it's here, isn't it? No, because your marginal cost is right here. So you are operating right there. That is your marginal cost. And as you can see here, price is greater than marginal cost. So monopolies are not allocative efficient. So productive efficiency, no. Allocative efficiency, no. Okay. For a monopolist, price is always greater than marginal cost. The marginal benefit to society will always be more than the marginal cost to society, so we should produce more, right? That's what's happening here, right? Your marginal benefit is more than your marginal cost, so you should produce more. But the monopoly is actually making more profits if they don't produce more. So thus, consumers do not benefit from monopoly because it will sell at a lower quantity at a higher price than they would in the case of perfect competition. So society as a whole is not maximizing their surplus, but the monopoly is maximizing their profits for sure. Okay? So, again, the big things here are the steps: demand, margin of revenue, margin of cost, MR equals MC, quantity, price, go up to the demand curve for the price, then go up to ATC, and then you can find the area of the profits. Very, very important. Okay? So, that's what a monopoly is. In the next chapter, we'll discuss monopolistic competition. Similar idea. I'll see you there. Bye.